Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for how to build a world-class service catalog from definition to automation. I am Lindsay with Beyond20, and I'm here to walk you through some intros here at the beginning and take your questions at the end. But I'm going to quickly pass it over to your two hosts today, Amanda Casteel and JC Grooms. Amanda is our Director of Services at Beyond20. We call her our service catalog whisperer because that's exactly what she is. She has all the ITIL certs you can think of, the most recent and relevant of which being the ITIL for Managing Professional and Strategic Leader. JC is a ServiceNow solutions consultant with us, and he is taking some time on his day off to do this. So thank you, JC, for stepping in and helping us out here and showing everybody how cool this stuff looks when it gets automated in a powerful tool like ServiceNow. So I will shut up. Amanda, please take it away. Tell us a little bit about Service Catalog, won't you?
Thank you, Lindsay. Hello, everyone. Happy to have you all join us today to talk about one of my favorite topics, Service Catalog. Very important topic for ITIL and for any ITSM, IT department, as Lindsay mentioned before. I like to call the Service Catalog, if we're thinking about ITSM as a choose your own adventure, you really need to start with the Service Catalog because it is the foundation for everything that you do in IT. And it's not just a customer facing tool. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. But for now, I want to talk, the first thing I want to talk about is just what are services. So a lot of times we think about just the stuff that we do, the stuff that IT does. And everything that we do is important, but what should be in your service catalog that goes to your customers are just the services that they need to see. They're not necessarily going to need to see every single thing that happens within IT. You want to have a nice, clean service catalog. I'm going to talk as we go through about some of the ITIL guiding principles and how they can really help to improve and just really help to guide you in the decisions as you're working through a service catalog. And one of those is keep it simple and practical. So keep it simple and practical with your service catalog. Don't overcomplicate it. We always recommend that an organization should have around 50 services, an IT organization. So if you have more, and that's a lot. So if you have more than that, you might want to think about taking a look and do we have these defined properly? 20 to 50 would be probably even better. So the stuff that IT does, we do all kinds of stuff. We take care of servers, we do cabling, we do passwords, we databases, but not all of that stuff is customer facing. Some of it is, and some of it is not. Some of it's internal, and the customers don't really need to see all of that. So what we try to teach our clients about is how to kind of move and change your thinking from the stuff that IT does to the IT services. What are actually our customers coming to us for? What services are they coming to us for? It's what value are they trying to get from us? What are they asking us for? What is it that we provide to them? We may not provide a physical product, but we're still offering a service to them. So that's really where we want to get to. So an analogy we like to use is at a restaurant, we often liken the service catalog to the menu at a restaurant. And restaurants do all kinds of stuff in the back. They cook fries, but you don't see fryers on the menu. right? So you're not going to see, rate arrays on your service catalog, most likely. So whenever you think about service catalog, that's a really good simple analogy to think about. Is just it's very similar to the menu that you're going to see at a restaurant. You might have pickles and ketchup and all kinds of ingredients back there in the restaurant, but not everything is going to be listed on the menu. Some of the stuff we're just using to make other services, right? The service catalog, the technical definition of the service catalog is just the structure of how we organize our services and basically the taxonomy of how we categorize our work and how we sort our work in our ITSM tool. So oftentimes we think about the service catalog as our portal, which is great because that's another use for our service catalog. So we're going to talk about that as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit later when I pass things over to JC. He's going to show some examples of how this can look and some really cool things that you can do with it. But to go back to the menu, think about how your menu is organized when you go to a restaurant. You have appetizers and you have side dishes and you have entrees. If everything on the menu of the restaurant was all mixed together, it would be hard to find what you were looking for. And it would probably take a long time to read and it would be really confusing. So you want to make your service catalog as easy for your customers to find what they're looking for. And we often do this by grouping services together and putting them under some kind of topic like appetizers and desserts, or application support, or cybersecurity support. There may be a specific industry that you work with. Like a bank may have banking services that has very specific IT services related to that industry. A K through 12 organization, IT department may have student services that provide, very specific type of services to their end users. So there's going to be some differences, but there's going to be a lot of services that are going to be very similar across the board. The point here is make sure that you group your services together so that your customers can find what they're looking for, and they don't have to search through. If you have 50 services, they're not searching through 50 services to find the thing that they're trying to get to. Again, keep it simple and practical. And defining your services can be difficult. So this is another example of basically how some of the terminology and the topics kind of translate into the terms that we use every day. So the ITIL term service catalog, everybody's familiar with that. Everybody knows what it means because you're all signed up for this great webinar. But in reality, what really the goal that we're trying to get to there is most likely a service portal. So where can we display our services to our customers? The line of service. Now, we talk about this at Beyond20. The line of service we use as a way to organize your services. So this is just something that we do when we're helping customers define things, grouping them up like, here's our appetizers, here's our entrees, here's our desserts, here's our cybersecurity services. So customers aren't trying to sort through everything all at once. As an example of a service, here we have identity and access management. So this organization is going to provide a service to their customers of identity and access management. And usually what that entails is, account management, password management, giving rights and sharing things, and whatever other services, whatever other offerings might go under that. There's two examples of service offerings here. Now, a service offering within that service might be something that your customers actually go to your portal to ask for. So they're actually going to go into your portal and say, I need a new account set up, or I need a password reset. So those are your very specific service offerings. Sometimes people call them categories, subcategories. They can be called different terms depending on what kind of tool you use, or kind of what internal terminology you have within your own IT department, and that's fine. Just getting across the general idea here. So the goal is really to define your services and define your categories and your types of requests or service offerings underneath those services. This is also the taxonomy of how you're going to organize your work within IT. So your incidents, as customers call your service desk and say I have an issue, that's how we're going to classify and categorize our tickets. We're going to log them as an incident under a type of service, and then we're going to give it a category, or even a subcategory if you go to a 3-tier type of structure. Now, before I came to Beyond20, I worked in IT operations for almost 15 years, managing service desks and full-scale IT departments. And I know that this is a really hard thing to get right, because as you add services, you add categories, and you add different ways to classify tickets all the time. So what usually ends up happening is you end up with many different ways to categorize the same type of call that comes into your service desk. And if, there's many different reasons why that's bad. One reason, well, let me list the reasons for you. One reason is it can be really hard to train people on how to use your tool. So if somebody calls and says, hey, I can't find my bookmarks on my web browser. I re-image my computer and my bookmarks are gone. There might be, 3 to 4 different ways your service desk technician can categorize that type of incident. So they may have a really difficult time learning how to do their job, or finding the right way even to categorize that type of work. So then what can happen because of that is you might end up not even having tickets get logged when people call, if it's really difficult to find what they're looking for. And I've been places where that's the case, where you just continue to add services and categories over years and years. You end up with so many different ways to categorize the same tickets. I'm sure that some of you out there have been in that situation as well. So it makes it hard to train new employees. It makes it really hard for your service desk, your frontline folks, to find what they're looking for. And if you're in a high volume environment and they need to get off the phone, it's just going to slow them down, which can lead them to just not logging tickets in the first place. Another, I think, even, well, just as bad a reason as just a bad result is that and it makes it really difficult to, well, it makes it impossible. I'll even go as far to say it makes it impossible to understand the trends, and it makes your reports almost meaningless, because if you have 3 or 4 ways to categorize your tickets and you're looking at a report on, you know, your your number of browser tickets, but people are actually logging browser tickets under a category that says service desk, then that's not going to give you any information about how many web browser tickets are actually coming in. So trend analysis, just reporting in general, problem management, service management, it's going to make all of that really difficult, if not impossible. And that's where Beyond20 can come in and kind of give you a hand. So I've done this before when I was a program manager managing IT departments, and taking and overhauling your service catalog, your taxonomy of how you are logging all of your work in IT. It can take like 3 months, because there's so many different stakeholders involved that you have to talk to, and there's just so many ways you can get it wrong. It's really hard to figure out how to narrow everything down and make sure that there's only one way to categorize every single type of call that comes in. So Beyond20 has a service catalog workshop. It is one of our most popular services that we offer to our customers, and it's really interactive. It's such a great value. If anybody out there is struggling with this, I would highly recommend giving us a call and talking to us about this, because the value that you're going to get from doing this is going to save you so much time from trying to do it by yourself on your own, and it's also just going to ensure that you're having the experts help you to get it right, because we've literally done this hundreds of times. So what we do is we take all of your services, all of your ideas, all of your, all of the work that you do. We actually look at all of your tickets for a month, and we kind of do a full analysis so that we have a really good understanding of the type of work that you do. And then when we come in to do your workshop, we have a really nice starting point for you. So it's based on your ticket analysis that we've done, it's based on your industry that you're in, and it's based on the kind of the standard that we find works well for most IT departments. So this is kind of what the service catalog workshop looks like. We start off, and it's very interactive. So if it's in person, we do sticky notes on the wall. We've done this many times virtual. We've done this like 4 or 5 times virtual over the past couple of months. And we do the same thing in Miro, which is a virtual whiteboarding tool. So it's really the same experience you have that you see here in a virtual environment. So we have each column up there you see is a line of service. So you've got your appetizers, your salads, your soups, your entrees, your desserts, and everything under each of those is is one of those services under there. And we take an iterative approach. So we're going through, we're defining your services, we're figuring out what you have, we're defining owners. And then you can see from the picture down below, this is an example of one at the end of the 2 days. All the work that we've done, and all of the services that we've defined, and all the categories, service offerings that we've defined within those services.
Amanda, I've got a quick
Um,
question for you.
yes.
And this didn't come from anyone in the audience. I'm just curious, when you go through these workshops with folks, do you have a rough estimate of how many fist fights you've had to break up from people on the teams going back and forth?
Yes, that's a great question, Lindsay. So I mean, to be honest, these are not easy conversations to have. There no fist fights that I've seen. Um,
Well, that's good.
but 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 I'm a tough facilitator, so I don't think anybody would dare have a fist fight in front of me anyway. But um, no, the discussions are pretty heated. So they can get these are hard conversations when you're talking about what should and shouldn't be a service, or if this should be categorized this way or this way. It sounds, why would we argue about that? But people get very territorial over their work with good reason. So um, these are not easy conversations to have, and having a third party facilitator in there to help you guide these discussions goes a long way. Um, so that's a good point, Lindsay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Um, so basically, we just spend 2 days in this workshop going through the the stickies on the wall and doing a lot of different types of exercises. It's very interactive. We have people, writing their own stickies and moving things around, and it's a really fun workshop. Um, Now I want to get into some tips, and I want to talk a little bit about the guiding principles. Okay, so um, these are the ITIL guiding principles. If anybody's not hasn't taken an ITIL 4 class, I really recommend it. There's a lot of extremely useful information in ITIL 4 that you can take and begin applying right away. And this is something that you can take and start applying right away, no matter what your role, what your position in any kind of IT hierarchy. So I talked a little bit about keep it simple and practical earlier. I want to talk a little bit about focus on value now. So when you're putting service offerings into your portal for your customers to use and to order items, you want to focus on value. Focus on the services that your customers are going to order the most. This is not something where you have to have it 100% complete in order to get it out there and get it up for customers to use. You can have your services defined, and you can have your top 5 service offerings out there for customers to order in your portal. You do not have to have 500 service requests or service offerings out there for your customers to use in order for your portal to be successful. You can think about the 80-20 rule. This is part of why we do a ticket analysis before we go into the workshop, so we have an understanding of the type of tickets that you're spending the most amount of time on, kind of some easy wins that you can get from putting those things into your portal or driving automations. So focus on value, focus on where your customers are going to get the most value. What do your customers ask you for the most? Start there. Don't think so much about incidents when you're thinking about your portal. If your customer has something that's broken, they're going to call you. They're not going to go to the portal and wait for a ticket to come through and someone to call them back, right? I mean, just think about you. How would you approach that? If your cable goes out, you're going to call somebody most likely. You're not going to send an email and just wait for somebody to respond to you. So don't worry so much about incidents. Start with the low hanging fruit. Start with, what are your customers asking you for the most? How can we put a tool out there that's going to give our customers the most value? Um, unless I'll put one caveat on that, unless there's something in the portal that your customers can go to and it can fix, they can fix it themselves. So we call this shifting left. You shift things left, so shifting left from a tier 3 to a tier 2, or a tier 2 to a service desk to resolve, or from a service desk to a portal to resolve. So we always want to be shifting things left to make things faster for our customers. Focus on the low-hanging fruit: service requests, password resets, permissions, things that your customers ask you for a lot. Another question I get a lot from our clients: how can we drive adoption of our portal? How can we get more people going to our portal instead of calling us? Well, the answer is really apply, optimize, and automate. The guiding principle: optimize and automate. You need to give your customers a reason to go to the portal. You need to give them some type of incentive to go there. So if it's going to be faster for them to go to the portal instead of to call, then that's what they're going to do. So you want to, again, think about shifting left. What can we automate so that our customers can just go right there and ask for it? Maybe software installs. Our customers ask for something that's already pre-approved and it's safe. There's no approval process that needs to be put in for this. So just let them go to the portal, ask for it, and boom, it can automatically be installed. Account setups for new hires, that's something that can be automated. That's not an easy thing that can be automated, but it can definitely save everyone in IT a lot of time and headaches to automate some of those processes where there's just a lot of different steps and tasks that involve a lot of different groups. Again, password resets, getting those automated, getting a way for your, it may not work if obviously they're locked out of their computer, but there may be password resets within your, various tools or systems that your clients use, that your customers use, that you can build those into your ITSM tool to let them reset them through there. Permissions, creation of groups, and there's a lot of really easy, low-hanging fruit of things that can be very easily automated without even having to talk to anybody, and it can just happen instantly. Another thing I want to mention is approvals, specifically around things like permissions or adding software. If there's, approvals can really create bottlenecks in a process. So if there's no reason for an approval, I always recommend to make your catalog easier to use and just faster service for your customers. Don't put unnecessary approvals in there. Like a manager approval, not necessary. Some kind of IT approval, that's not necessary. There's really two reasons why I would even let a client put an approval in, or consult a client to put an approval in, and that would be if there's a financial impact, if there's a budget impact and they need to have approval for funding, or if there's a security reason that they need approval. And other than that, I mean, even though the ITSM tools will facilitate the approvals for you, and they will really do a great job of managing the approvals and automating them for you, approvals are just going to create bottlenecks, and it's just going to be more work that you have to track and manage within your ITSM ticketing system. So at this point, you can do, I just want to mention that you can do any of this in, you can build a portal. You can, obviously the catalog is relevant no matter what ITSM tool you have. But I'm going to pass things over to JC, and today he's going to show you an example of a ServiceNow portal. And in JC's demo here, he's applied, a few of these guiding principles, many of them, but the three that I want everyone to be thinking about as you're looking at JC's demo is focus on value, start where you are, and optimize and automate.
All right. So we're going to take a look at from the customer view first of what is this going to look like from the portal side, and then we'll take a look at from an agent view of what are some of those automations and how do we actually resolve that request. So the first thing I'm going to do here in ServiceNow is I'm going to impersonate Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is just basically one of our customers. This is primarily an out-of-the-box system with a few of the items that we've changed here. So as I'm logged in as Andrew Jackson here, the first thing I'm going to do as a customer is go into the portal. Now this is a very kind of out-of-the-box ServiceNow portal. With ServiceNow, there's always kind of many things that you can do the same thing of if you just click around. So request something. You can also go to catalog. So it's the same kind of thing, just many ways to do it. From here, we can also see a knowledge base. We can do a search for items, and we can specify this search if we want to search catalog items, if we want to search knowledge articles, really kind of however we want. We have the ability to do so here. For this example, we're going to request something, and we can see kind of like our restaurant menu here of the different items that we can request. In this case, we're going to take a look under our popular items, and we want to request a database access. This will bring us to the actual request page that can be customized to whatever needs you need them to be. For this one, we need to provide what is the database instance. So we'll take a look at our options. In this case, I want to have access to, well, I guess Andrew Jackson wants access to the Oracle 11i. The next thing that's required here is going to be the access type. And we can see it's required because it's denoted by this red asterisk here. Once we've fulfilled the requirement, it then turns to gray, like we can see here in the database instance. And for this, Andrew just wants to be able to create an update. If there's any additional attachments that are needed, we can click on the Add Attachments. For this request, we don't have that. If there are multiple requests that you want to do at once, we can use this Add to Cart functionality and then check out later on. But for this example, we just want to create this database access request. So we'll go ahead and order now. We can see that the request is for Andrew Jackson. This can be customized as well. And so if I'm a manager making the request for one of my employees, I can, ServiceNow does allow the ability to change this so you can request it for specific people. Out of the box, it also includes delivery information and special instructions. And so if any of those are needed, you can certainly add them here. We're not going to add them right now, but we will check out. We can see that this request has been created. Here's the request number. And I'm just going to copy and paste this for my reference. And then we will go take a look at what it's going to look like from the analyst perspective. So this is the portal perspective. We see the request summary. We can always access other requests here as well. And we can see this is the one that we just requested here. So if we get back into the full client, I'm going to end the impersonation. And now for this example, I'm going to be logged in as the system administrator, but we could be logged in as just the analyst itself. I'm going to enter in my request number that I want to fulfill. And here we can see that it's been requested for Andrew Jackson. So within ServiceNow, the request automatically creates a RITM or a requested item. This is generally where it's going to be the work is actually going to happen on. In ServiceNow, there is a lower phase as well. There's also a task phase. And so work is always done on the lowest kind of table that you have. So we have the request. The requested item is also always created. And let's take a look. We've got the database instance and the access type that was requested. And for this specific workflow, so once it's been created, what happens is ServiceNow then gives you the option to create a workflow that can be dynamic and it can be used for multiple items. And so this one, the first item that happens is because this is for database access, this is going to be a security item. And so we do need an approval here. The first approver on this, and this is just an example, of course, is that it's going to Abel, who happens to be Andrew Jackson's manager. For the approval, what happens is Abel will also be getting an email. He can approve or deny it through the email, or you can come to the requested item and either right-click approve or reject, or you can go into it. You can change the state here, or also we have the buttons at the top. So there are many ways, like I said before, to achieve the same thing. In this case, we're going to approve it. So now from the workflow, what this database entry, database access requirement is that it then goes to additional approvers. So on this, we see that there is a group approval, and that is the database assignment group. In addition, we've also added a user approver that happens to be David Liu. So both David and someone from the database group now have to approve it for it to move on. The way it is currently set up is that anyone from the database group can approve it and then it will, or deny it. And that will be for the entire group. So not everyone has to do the approval. David Liu does have to approve it as he is a user approver. And the nice thing with ServiceNow too, well, especially in this example, is all of these approvals, they're not, you don't have to set it up that way. It's just kind of optional of what you want the workflow to do. And so we've approved it for David and Beth. And now we can see that Fred and the ITIL user are no longer required. We can also see that after this approval has happened, it does create a catalog task. And so what's interesting about the catalog task is that we have this requested item created. It has now gone through the approvals. And now the reason why tasks are important is oftentimes your items are going to have to go to different groups. And so if it has to go to many groups, for instance, maybe it's the database team, maybe it's also got to go to a separate infrastructure team, you can add specific tasks that are assigned to those groups. So you don't have to worry about changing where the requested item goes. The work gets done on the task level itself. Here, someone from the database team would log in and see that Andrew Jackson here has made a request for the Oracle instance, then needs to create an update. Now, these tasks aren't going to be generated until the approvals have happened. So you don't have to worry about the database team doesn't get something that they don't need to do or they have to wait to do because they won't. They will only receive this once they have gotten the approvals to actually do the work. So once they've done this, they would close out the task and that would finish the request. Now, we've done something similar with this with a company recently. I believe they had about 70 access request items. And had we have done just a workflow for each request, for each item, it would have probably taken us about 2 weeks. But utilizing the power of ServiceNow and the dynamic workflows, we were able to get development time down to about a single day. So there is really power in automating, reusing the same items. You save development time, you save administrative time, you save time for your analysts. And as Amanda said, it's all about shifting it left.
Yeah, to just add to JC's point that he just made, start where you are is really about reusing what you have, and that's exactly what we follow at Beyond 20. So we're able to gain a lot of efficiencies, and we were able to implement ServiceNow instance for our client in 3 months with a lot of automations and a lot of workflows for them. Great job, JC. I'm going to pass things over to Lindsay and see if we have any questions from our audience.
Yeah, we've had a lot of chatter. So I want to start with this one is kind of a question, but it's something that I wanted to get your thoughts on. It's more of a statement about how difficult grouping can be. I was chatting with Mitchell quite a bit during the session today, and he said it's tough because everyone thinks and organizes differently, and that got me thinking about our part of our workshop, and something that's certainly doable in-house, but something that we include as part of our workshop is the focus groups, and getting this stuff in front of users and in front of customers to make sure it makes sense to people who aren't in IT. Could you maybe elaborate on the value of that and what we're really getting at when we do the focus groups?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of what we do after we're done with the workshop and we have everything wrapped up and typed up neatly, we have all of these messy sticky notes that you saw nicely on one piece of paper. It's more of kind of how you might see it in a portal. We have focus groups with your customer base. So we try to have groups of similar types of roles. So a real easy example is higher ed. We would do a group for students, we would do a group for faculty, and we would do a group for staff. Because different customer groups are going to use the portal differently, and they're going to use maybe different terminology. And every business has their own students, faculty, and staff groups. So you can just kind of think about what yours might be. And we talk to them and make sure that they can find what they need in what we designed. Because it's not easy to do. And sometimes we think, oh man, we really nailed this. We have all of the terminology right. We've got everything down. It's gonna be great. But we always come out of the focus groups with changes, because in IT, it makes a lot of sense to us. But once you go out of IT, there's different understandings, and they use terms differently than we do. So it always helps to get your customer's point of view in everything that you do, not just Service Catalog. So the focus groups are extremely valuable, because part of the reason you're doing this is so that your customers will use it. If your customers don't understand, or they don't know how to find what they're looking for, they're not going to use it.
Cool, thank you so much. I've got a question. I know we were going to do some shameless plugging of training here at the end, but we did have a question about whether, are there any training classes that are specific to Service Catalog and the kind of in the weeds, how to really get in there and do it? Obviously, our Service Catalog workshop is an interactive way to do that with a team, but I know there are some different IDLE4 classes that maybe touch on catalog. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. So here are upcoming classes. I would say Drive Stakeholder Value would be a class to definitely consider taking. That's DSV here, August 9th and 11th. That class talks about the customer journey. So all of the touch points, all of the service offerings, the packages that you're going to develop, how you're going to display it to the customer, SLAs. So the Drive Stakeholder Value is a great class. It's kind of like a marketing class. It's talking about, how your customer journey, and how can we make sure that our customers' journey with us is giving them the most value.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. What else do we want to cover? Let's see, we tackled that one. Could you cover briefly the rationale? Give us the kind of window of what we recommend in terms of number of services, and what's the rationale behind us kind of capping it at 50?
Well, it's just unlikely that once an organization may say, well, we have 100 services, and then we go in and do the workshop, and we get it down to it's more of an average, I guess. But the thing is, like, if you go into a restaurant, like, think about when you go to the Cheesecake Factory and they have a 50-page menu to flip through. It doesn't matter how well it's organized, it's going to take you a while to find what you want to eat. So how many different ways are you listing the same thing on your menu, I guess, on your catalog, is one way to think about it. So those are the kind of discussions that we have in the workshop. Is this really a service? Is it something that we need to put on here? Is it just a category of another service? Service ownership is another, if you have 100 services and you're going to have 100 different service owners. It's not to say that you don't, but applications are not services. That's something else to think about that we, I have a lot of blog articles on the website about other tips around service catalog. But if you're thinking about, well, we have over 50 applications, so we're going to have over 50 services, that's something that we don't really practice setting up your catalog that way either. So there are some organizations, sure, that are really large, that do a lot of different types of support, that have more than 50 services. It's not a hard and fast rule. But most of our workshops, we're going to get them around that sweet spot.
Cool, thank you.
Amanda, I just wanted to add one thing here too, if that's all right.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so I think you made a really good point of, like, when you have more services, start to take a look at, are those services really different, are they not? And you touched on the customer aspect, but also the analyst aspect too, I think is important, because if they're labeling incorrectly services, or even if they're labeling technically correct, but one agent does one thing and one analyst does another, then your reporting is going to get all messed up as well. And so I think that making sure to limit your services on that aspect is important, because I've worked with many organizations that had a lot of the same things, or their analysts, they didn't understand where to classify things, so things were getting miscategorized, and then your reporting gets wrong, and then it's just that snowball effect from there on out.
Yeah, that's a great point, JC. So yeah, I went on quite a long rant about this during the webinar, and I didn't even bring it up here, but that's that's an excellent point, because if your folks aren't categorizing things right, then you can't trust your data. So if you can't trust your data, then why are we even logging tickets in the first place?
Yeah, great points. Great points. I have a follow-up to the question I asked previously about the number of services. Could you share our thoughts as far as best practice goes with respect to the number of service offerings or request items? Do we have any guidance there?
Okay, good question. So there, it's not really quite so cut and dry. You can continue to add as many as it makes sense. I would say, as long as it's providing value to the customer, if there's some kind of automation that's happening, as JC showed in his demo, if you're creating an actual task that's going into someone, or driving something to a queue, or driving an approval, then absolutely makes sense. I'll tell you when it doesn't make sense. If all you're doing is making the customer select something and you're dumping it back into a general service desk queue, then you're not really getting any value out of it.
Awesome, thank you. What else do I want to hit? This is a me question, just because I'm curious. Where do you find people most often get stuck when going through this? Is it at the beginning with definition? Is it passing it over to automation? Where do we see our clients get stuck, and what recommendations might you have for folks who are taking this initiative on right now?
Folks will get stuck when you pass to a certain group. So that it's hard to exactly define this, but you all in your organizations have one certain group that's either underwater, overwhelmed, has too much on their plate. They're just not going to get to it. So you have this massive spreadsheet that you're trying to pass around to everybody. You give it to them, it's just going to sit with them, and your initiative is going to stall, because this is not an easy thing to do. It's going to take the team lead having meetings with their team members, sitting through, continually revising it, or what you're going to get is just exactly what they have right now.
Yeah.
You're also going to get stuck, I think, at some point, trying to figure out where do we have duplicates and how do we get rid of the duplicates. And then what will happen inevitably is you'll delete somebody's category or service and say, oh, it's over here. And then they're going to say, well, I don't want to go to this other service. I want to keep it here. So, without having everyone in the room talking through this, everyone getting on the same page, getting that buy-in, that's another kind of hang-up point that you'll run into later.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Here's an easy one. When we do our ticket analysis, do we incorporate requests as well, or just incidents?
Yes, we do requests and incidents, and we do it for us, but we also do it for you. So it really helps us when we're walking in. It gives us like a really nice picture of your environment and some things that just some insight walking into the workshop. But we also give you a report and some findings. Oftentimes we'll notice some things that we can say, hey, it looks like, after you put your new catalog in place, it would really help if you stress these 4 points with your service desk folks. It'll give you some quick wins. So it's a great value add to the service, because you get a little extra consulting besides just the service catalog.
Well, aren't we generous?
Always.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, we're running out of time, but let me get one more in here, if I may. Okay. Let's talk about speaking the same language. You mentioned, and as we were prepping for this session yesterday, we kind of spoke with JC about how different tools use different terminology, for the service catalog, and different people use different terminology. The terminology's changed from ITIL v3 to ITIL 4. What do you think about how valuable is it to have everyone speaking the same language, first of all, on like a practical day-to-day level? And what do you recommend to get everyone on that same page for that stuff, if that makes sense?
Yeah, great question. So it's not so important that everyone's using ITIL 4 language, or everyone's using ServiceNow language, or whatever your tool is. It's really more that you all understand what each other are saying when you're using terms. So having your services defined, having a standard place that everyone can go to say, okay, here's the application support or endpoint support, or bring your own device support service. And here's exactly what that means. Here's what we provide. That's a benefit that you're going to get coming out of the workshop. Define services, descriptions for your services, service owners, and categories for how to organize the work within those services.
It's not about being right or wrong in terms of what you call it. It's just making sure everybody understands what the person next to him is talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, potato, but we all need to be using the same one in the same organization. Exactly.
Potato and or potato. Cool. Well, I'm going to leave it here since we're at almost the one. Oh, there we are. We're at the hour. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this session today. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, JC. We will follow up with an email that'll include the full recording of this session, and I'm going to throw in some helpful links. Amanda has written basically a book about Service Catalog scattered throughout our blog on the site. So whether you're more on the strategy side or if you're really looking to get into the weeds and dig through this, we've got some good resources for you. Oh, we have a template too. I'm going to send everybody the template. So have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.